Hello everybody, and welcome back to the final video here in Module 3, where we're going to be talking about UVs and texturing in Maya. Now, as a quick reminder, you are not required to follow along with this video. It's merely to introduce the concepts of UVs and texturing early, so that you get a good idea about them before we swap over to Unreal in a couple of weeks. That said, if you do want to follow along, you are more than welcome to, but you are not required to have UVs or textures for any of the homework in the upcoming 2 weeks. That said, let's go ahead and start talking about textures and UVs. Now, you might recall when we did our lighting and rendering video back with the chair project, that if you select an object, hold right-click, you can go down to the bottom of this context menu to create new materials or assign existing materials. So let's go ahead and assign a new material. I'm going to go ahead and choose Lambert, and we are automatically taken to our attribute editor, where we can click our Lambert tab, rename it to something else. I'll name it wood_basic, and we can then change our color to something a little bit more hazelnutty. Try and match the wood over here in our reference image. Sure. Then select our base, hold right click, assign existing material, assign that wooden texture again, and then we can go ahead and select all of our pips, as well as the handles on the side and the hinges on the back. Every last little bit, the rings too. Make sure we're not missing anything. And once we have those all selected, we can also go ahead and assign these pieces a new material. So hold right click, assign new material. And these we want to be slightly metallic because of the brass on our chest. So we're going to choose Blinn. And this is going to be our gold material. Now let's quickly pop open the Arnold renderer and also create a simple skydome light so we can see what we're working with. And if we select one of these pips again and go to our gold material, we can go ahead and change the color to a bright yellow, and we can watch them change in real time. We want to get this nice and reflective, so let's zoom in over here on our image. We can go ahead and crank up our diffuse, crank up our specular. Let's change the specular, which is the reflective color, to a sort of dark green, so that it matches the brassiness that we have in our reference image. Let's increase our reflectivity, which will make it slightly more metallic. Let's change our reflected color again as well. Maybe make that a little bit more yellow. And you can see that we can start creating, just by adjusting all of these variables, into something that appears similar to our reference. In addition to selecting objects and assigning new materials over here in the attribute editor, we can also do it by face. So I'm going to pause this real quick, zoom in on my chest, go to face select, and let's say that I want the slants up front, and let's say that I want these faces up front to be a redder shade. So we're going to go ahead and select all of these faces. There we go, and we can go to assign new material. We can make another Lambert. We can name this Lambert wood_red. And we can change our color to a slightly different shade of wood. Ooh. Let's go ahead and make it redder. Ooh, not that red. So we can reselect our object, go back to that red color, and maybe make it a little darker. There we go. And then same thing with our lid. Select all of the slit faces from here up to there, down to here, and then across, and then back forward. All of these faces. And we can go ahead and assign existing material and choose that red color. And now we have something slightly nicer. We can then go ahead and adjust our render, and that would do for a simple chest. Now this would not work if we wanted to replace these simple solid colors with proper texture images. So let's talk a bit about that. I'm going to go ahead and select the lid of my chest, and I'm going to come over to this wood basic. Now I'm going to click this little grid button next to my color setting, and what that's going to do is it's going to pull up this menu that says Create Render Node. Now I want to replace this color with a texture image, so I'm going to click this File button, and that's going to very temporarily break my texture image, and it's going to ask me for an image name, which we are going to go ahead and click this folder, and it's going to pull up my source images folder. Now we're going to go ahead and pop over to the internet to grab our wooden textures. So if you Google seamless or tiling texture, you'll get some fairly decent results, many of which will be from Shutterstock or Adobe, and you might have to buy some of these, but they'll all be fairly decent images. If you want to fine-tune your search, I highly suggest popping open Google Images Tools and setting your size to large so that you get some decently sized images, because we want some high resolution. Now if you don't like any of these stock options, you can also Google PBR textures. PBR stands for Physical Based Rendering, and if you go to the free PBR material library, this is a collection of high quality materials that you can apply to objects in Maya and Unreal. In addition to the free PBR library, there is also Quixel Megascans, which is free for use with Unreal Engine. If you have an Epic Games account, then you can go ahead and access the Quixel Megascan library, and you can download any of these high quality textures and apply them to your objects. Now when you download a PBR material, you'll be given a zip file, and if you pop open that zip file, you will find an albedo map, which is our colors, as well as a metallic and roughness map for a little bit of added texture. We'll talk more about the normals once we get into Unreal. For now though, let's go ahead and go to our source images folder, where I've already gone ahead and saved a dark and red wood texture for our use. Now back in Maya, we are going to apply our wooden dark texture to the sides of our chest. We're going to go ahead and click open, and it doesn't look like much has changed. If I hit play in the render view, it's still a fairly dark wood, so we don't get to see the difference. If you want to see them, you need to click this little button up here next to this light bulb, and then we can see our texture applied on our object. But if we zoom in really close, let's go ahead and minimize our Arnold render view, we can see that the texture, for starters, is mirrored in strange places, and it's very, very warped all around the sides of our box. If we go ahead and Ctrl 1 and look at it from the inside, we can see similar effects happening in there. Lots of texture tearing. So that's what I meant when I said that our texture images wouldn't hold up on our model. And the reason for that is our UVs. Now for a brief explanation of what UVs are and how they work, if you've ever seen these cut out animal layouts where you print a picture onto a sheet of paper, cut it out, and then glue it into an animal, or if you've ever taken apart a cardboard box and laid it out flat, that is effectively what a UV is. It's a 2D projection of a 3D object. Now if we come back to Maya and zoom out, Ctrl 1, and let's talk about this cube. We can go up top next to our deform menu and open up our UV editor. And this is where we're going to edit our UVs. So, first things first, this is an orthographic view, which means we can't rotate it around, but we can hold Alt and left click to pan and the mouse wheel to scroll in and out. We can also hold right click to get a context menu, where we can select our faces, edges, and vertexes, very similar to the one we have in our perspective view. We can also go ahead and select certain faces and edges, and move them around in our UV editor, and you'll notice that doing so doesn't change the model. Same thing the other way around. If we select any edges on our model, or any faces on our model, we can move them around without changing the UVs. Now, in order to get a better idea of what moving the UVs actually does, I'm going to hit these two buttons at the top of the window, and we're going to see this texture pop up, which we can use to test our UVs. Now we're going to go ahead and grab some faces and move them around, and notice that because the UVs aren't changing as I move the model, the texture ends up being squashed because the face in the UV editor doesn't match the same shape as it does on the mesh. Same thing happens if we move the UVs around. So if I grab this edge and pull it off to the side, you'll notice that the texture warps. Now the biggest thing that'll mess with your UVs is an extrusion. So if I go ahead and select this face and extrude it up, you'll see this weird texture tearing on the extruded faces. And if we look at our UVs, let me just turn that grid off, you can see that I have those 4 faces selected, but in the UV editor, it looks like I just have 4 edges. So what we're going to do to fix this, I'm going to go ahead and select the top edges around my extrusion and scale them in my UV editor. And now you can see that I have this ring of faces around that top face, and those are the faces that are causing my weird texture issue. So when you add in faces with an extrusion, you can always expect your UVs to end up a little bit warped, and that's what we need to fix on our chest. Now let's talk about how to actually fix up some of those issues. So let's say that I want this face attached to a different face. Let's say that we want it side by side with the one next to it. So what we're going to do is I need to move this face up. So I'm going to go ahead and select the edge that is connecting that face to my UV shell, the whole UV piece. And I'm going to go up to Cut and Sew, and I'm going to choose Cut. And that's going to turn that edge white. And now we can move this face freely. Now I'm going to line it up to where we want it, next to this top face on my UVs. And I'm going to zoom in and go to my edge select. And you'll notice that when I hover over one of these edges, it actually turns red, and I end up selecting more than one. That's because the boundary edges, the white ones, are shared between multiple faces. Right? You can understand that the edge is shared between the 2 adjacent faces, and in our case, they are the wrong faces. So I'm going to have to rotate this face, and now the boundary edge facing the other piece is the right one. Now we can also go ahead and move our pivot point, again by hitting D to move our pivot, and then V, hold V to snap to vertex, and now we can hit W, so we go back to our movement tool, hold V, and snap it into position. Now we want to merge these 2 pieces of UVs, so we're going to select that edge, and we're going to go to Cut Sew and click Sew. And now they are all one piece, and we can move our faces around, and you can see that now these 2 faces are connected, but not these 2 faces. You can see the bottom of that V clipping. Now if you wanted to try and fix that, you could grab the boundary edge in between the 2 faces, and we can go ahead and go up to our Cut and Sew menu and sew it closed. But if you do this, let's turn our UV texture back on. If we move this middle vertex, you can see that even though the faces are now hooked up together, the texture still warps. So you probably don't want this sort of effect. Now let's say we wanted to fix that issue. What we would do if we wanted to create a new boundary edge is select that edge and go back to Cut and Sew and cut it to turn it into a white boundary edge, and then we need to separate the faces. But you can't just do that by grabbing the shared vertex and pulling it apart, because it'll move it on every face. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to double-click the UV, go down to the bottom of the Modify menu, and click Unfold. And that'll pop open our UVs into the optimal state. And we want to scale down our UVs to fit inside this 1x1 square. If your UVs are bigger than that 1x1 square, or are overlapping beyond that square's bounds, you might notice some misalignments in your UVs. We want to keep all of our UV shells inside that 1x1 square for now. There are techniques that allow you to use more than one, but for our purposes, keep everything inside this box. So, just to summarize the last few minutes, the most important tools we'll be using for editing our UVs are the Cut and Sew tools, which are Shift X and Shift S. Shift X is Cut and Shift S is Sew. And we'll also be using our Unfold tool, which is Ctrl U. So now that we have a basic understanding of how UVs work and the tools we're going to use to edit them, let's go ahead and start working on our chest. So I'm going to start with our lid, Ctrl 1, and you're going to see all of the gobbledygook caused by our extrusions. Now in order to fix this, we're going to need a really good starting point. So I'm going to go up to Create, and there's two good options. The first one is Automatic, which will separate the object out into UVs that Maya thinks are okay, and we can rotate around and see where Maya decided to put our planes. And it's better than default, but we'd have to do a bunch of sewing to get all of the faces back to where we want them. The other option, and the option that I prefer, is if we go to Create, is the camera-based selection, which will give us this full singular piece of our UVs based on however we position our camera. And the powerful thing about that is that we can go ahead and just select a couple edges and cut and sew as we see fit and end up with UVs exactly how we like them without relying too much on Maya's automatic function. So I'm going to go ahead and start with this camera-based layout, and I'm going to start cutting up my object. And in order to do that, we're not going to use our multicut tool, we're just using the edge selection tool. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to select, starting with all of the edges around this little red ridge. All of these edges, gotta get into every nook. And it's a bit easier to select them all while I'm in Smooth Preview. So that's why I am in Smooth Preview. Just want to select all of the edges around those middle faces. Want to make sure I don't miss any of them as I go. And there we go, down to the bottom, and then the bottom edge. And now that I have selected that whole ring, I'm going to come over to my UV editor and I'm going to hit Shift X. And now those edges are white. If I come back over here, I can see that my edges are now white. Some of them it has missed, so let's go ahead and double click them, make sure that I got them all. Shift X, come in here, Shift X, see if I missed any others, got those, got that whole back row. I think that's all of them. And since that is all of them, I can now go to Face Select, come over here to my camera-based view, and double click. And it looks like I didn't click all of them because it's still one piece. So let's go ahead and zoom back in, see what I missed. Give it another little rotate around, got all of those. All of those, all of those. Is it in the back? Got those. And those. Zoom in. I imagine that the faces I'm missing are in a divot. Aha! Found them. Shift X. Now they're completely separated, and I should be able to double click and drag these faces out. And these are all of the faces with that red texture that I had on them before. So I can now go to Modify and Unfold, and I have now this strip of faces that will be textured red. I'm going to go ahead and set those over here. Now let's go ahead and start working on the sidebars, because remember, our object is warped on them. So we're going to go ahead and go to Face, or rather go to Edge, and I'm going to go ahead and separate the outside from the inside. So let's go ahead and select the faces around, or the rim, the edges around the rim rather. Double click all of the rim edges. Make sure we're not missing a single one. That's the wrong edge loop. And if we mess up, we can always fix it after, but I prefer not to mess up. That should be all of the exterior rim edges. So come back to my UV editor, Shift X, and I should be able to separate the outside from the inside. Good. Now this is the inside. I'm also going to go ahead and separate the rim out from the inside. Go back to my edge select. All of these, not you. All of these. There we go. Just double click one of those, Shift X, and that should give me the exterior rim. I can now go ahead and modify, unfold that. We're going to set that over here for now. Now this is the entire inside. I'm going to go ahead and cut this up. I want them all to connect to this middle face. I'm going to treat this as if it's a glorified cube. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to double click the edge corners. So that gives me that whole edge over here. And double click the same edge over here. But I don't want to cut it along the top. But I'm going to leave the top edges connected. And I don't want any of the edges along the outside selected. So I'm going to go ahead and deselect those, so that I just have the interior. Same thing out here. Oops. Don't want any of the edges on the rim or the outside. I deselected the ones over here. One more time, deselect the ones up top. Deselect the ones on the diagonal. Deselect the ones on the rim. And deselect the ones outside. Give it a little rotate, double check. Looks good. Shift X. Face select. Modify, unfold. And that is our new UV layout for the inside of the chest, which is fine enough for our purposes. Good. Now we've got our inside, our rim, and our red faces. So now all we have is the back and the two octagonal sides. So I'm going to treat the backbone as the primary face. I'm going to go ahead and rotate around and select some edges in here. These should already be, gotta get into the divot and select some of these edges. I'm going to separate out the diagonal portion. So let's get in there, select all of these. Aha. And that should be all of the diagonal faces. Hit Shift X. Go to Face Select, double click, and Ctrl U to unfold. And now I have this butterfly shape, which if I go ahead and select and shrink down and move into position, let's go ahead and rotate it around so that the bottom is flat. We can go ahead and position that down here. And if we check our object, that texture is now nicely applied onto our model. Let's go ahead and move these back into position as well. So we're going to go ahead and grab our interior faces, rotate them around, scale them down a bit, and position them somewhere inside of that square. Very good. And now our UVs are laid out nicely, the textures wrap properly, and we can go ahead and start working on some more of our UVs. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Ctrl 1, and I'm going to go to Pip Stop, and I'm going to edit the UVs for my pips. Now for these, I'm going to go ahead and create automatic. And it's going to give me an error because I don't have the object selected. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my group, select them all, create automatic, and I get a bunch of rings. This is gobbledygook. So I'm going to undo and create camera based instead. And this is slightly less bad gobbledygook because at least all of the faces are connected. So if I go ahead and click on all of these, we can see that they are individually all put together. So what we're going to do is we're going to select all of our spheres, and in Face Select, select all of the faces, and then we're going to go ahead and hit Modify and Unfold, and then we're going to go to Modify and Layout. And that's going to give us a bunch of little circles. Each one is a singular pip, and they're all laid out nicely. But they're all pretty much the same object, so what I'm going to do is take it one step further. I'm going to go ahead and lay them out on top of each other by just selecting them and holding the V key one at a time and just dragging them all on top of each other. And I'm just going to pile them on top of each other until they're all there. And now that I have them all piled up, I'm going to go ahead, go to Object Mode again, and I'm going to shift-click my lid. And I happen to have all of this empty space in my lid UVs, and that's actually a great place to put my pip UVs. So I'm going to right-click, go to Face Select, and I want to select just my pip UVs, make sure I've got them all, and I'm going to shrink them down a bit and put them over here off to the side, make sure that they fit nicely in my UV layout. Now let's continue down our hierarchy and do the latch. Let's go ahead and zoom in, Let's start on one of these screws, Ctrl 1. Now, the UV's already fairly decent, but let's figure out what's up with these squares in the back. And those appear to be from our extrusion of our disk. So we're going to go ahead and double click adjacent neighbors to get the whole loop. Make sure I'm clicked into my UV editor and delete those faces. Then I'm going to reselect them over here. Come back to my UV editor, create a camera-based UV. Then I'm going to go to my edge select, and I'm going to go ahead and select that whole boundary edge around the screw head, and Shift S, sew those together, and then finally double click the faces and Ctrl U to unfold them, and that is our finished screw UV. Now I could go ahead and repeat those steps for every single screw, but it is probably better to just go ahead and delete the old ones and copy over some new ones. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. I'm going to pop open my mirror options, turn off combine with original. So there's the front two. Let's go ahead and drag a copy. Oop. Hold shift. Get a nice duplicate. Modify center pivot. Let's rotate it around. Oh, we need to freeze transformation because our axes are off. 90 degrees. Move them over here. Now the ones we had on our hinge were a little bit bigger, or on our handles I mean. So let's go ahead and scale them up a bit. Good. Delete the old ones. Push in the new one. Let's go ahead and rotate around. Hit our D key to move our pivot to where it needs to be. Hold our V key to snap to vertex. Good. Line that up where it needs to be. Give it a little rotate. We're going to go ahead and mirror it in the Z direction. Make sure that this is positive. There we go. Make sure that we have the right material on it. Same thing with the copy. Now let's go ahead and figure out where my pivot is. Okay. Mesh. Let's go to modify. Center pivot again. Drag another copy. Delete the old ones. Line up these. There we go. Double check to make sure they've been deleted on this side. Sure have. Alright, let's go ahead and select these screws again and mirror them the other way around. Mesh mirror. X positive direction. Only getting one at a time. Alright, let's undo. Let's do them one at a time then. Mesh mirror. X positive. Mesh mirror. X positive. Mesh mirror. X positive. Mesh mirror. X positive. And then we need to select all of the screws. Make sure they have the right material. Rotate to the other side, same thing over here. Grab one of these, modify center pivot, drag this one to the back, freeze transformations, rotate it around so that it's facing the right way. And let's go ahead and sneak it into all of the places it needs to be. Huh, did we never put screws on the hinges? I suppose not. Alright. Let's go ahead and put these in according to our reference image. How are they laid out? There's the back. Give me the back reference image, please. Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. Oh, are we missing one in the bottom center? No. Okay, good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's do it. So zoom in. D. Move our pivot to where it needs to be. Hold V again to snap. Whoop. We screw onto the surface of our hinge. Double check the reference one last time. Alright, so 1, 2, 3, 4. And then one at the bottom. Didn't hold shift. There we go. And hold V to make sure that it lines up with the center of the hinge. Good. And then we need to mirror those over here. So one more time, mesh mirror. We've got it on the right axis. Good, good, good. I'm just gonna go ahead and combine these and mesh mirror. There we go. Now we need to make sure that they're all in the right groups. So we're going to go ahead and select all of these, edit, delete by type history, and then drag these into the hinges group, rotate around, grab all of these, and the ones on the other hinge, 1, 2, 3, 4, pop open our bottom group, and these go into our handles. And then we need to check the ones up front and edit, delete by type history one more time. Make sure that they're in the latch group. So we've got this one needs to be in the latch top group. That one is also in the latch top group, so that is good, but it is inside of a useless group. So we'll go ahead and fix that. And then we also, I forgot previously, we missed some hinges or some screws on the bottom of this. So I'm going to very quickly hold shift and add some screws to the bottom of the latch. And we're just going to go ahead and put those into our bottom latch group. So select those four, move them into the bottom latch group. We don't currently have one, I'll put them in bottom, and we'll Ctrl G. Let's rename latch bottom to just latch, and we'll change this to latch underscore bottom. Good. So now that we've got our hierarchy fixed again, let's go ahead and fix up the rest of this top latch part. Let's start with the ring, Control 1, and let's exit smooth preview. Let's go ahead and create a camera-based UV set, and let's start adding in some edges, some boundary edges. So I'm going to start by double-clicking this ring that goes around the inside of my latch, Shift X to cut, and if I go ahead and double-click this and unfold it, Control U, then we'll end up with something that looks alright, but an important thing to note is that these rings of faces along the front and this ring of faces along the back are differently sized, and we want to fix that. So the way we're going to go ahead and fix that is I'm going to disconnect them, but only on 3 sides. So let's go ahead and do those 3 sides here. Shift X, rotate around, same exact edge loops over here, Shift X. Let's go back to face select and Control U. Okay, well, we're getting somewhere. So this ring of faces goes along the outside edge, okay. These faces are on this side. Where are those faces? On the other side. They are curled up in here, so we need to fix that. I'm going to go ahead and grab my edge select again, and I'm going to cut this exterior ring in half and see if that fixes our problem. So we're going to go ahead and select this, Shift X, grab our faces, Ctrl U, and we're getting somewhere better. Honestly, I might just separate out the inside ring so that we end up with something a little bit smoother, so that this ends up being symmetrical. Let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to grab these edges, Shift X, Ctrl U, Ctrl U, and then we're going to go ahead and scale these down so that they fit inside one of these gaps. And this will be our UV for this little latch piece. Let's Ctrl 1, drag these over here for now, shrink them down. Let's move on to the next piece. Let's go to the top part of the latch. Ctrl 1. Let's see what it gives us if we just hit automatic. That's not terrible. Let's see if we can make it a little better. Camera based. Let's start by cutting off the bottom down here. Shift X. Then let's also separate the bottom from the front down here. Shift X. Let's see how that's looking. Ctrl U. Alright. Let's keep cutting faces. So currently these are unfolding towards the front of this piece, which is fine. Did I miss any edge loops there that I wanted to separate out? No. Okay. So since we have those unfolding forwards, let's have this piece unfolding out towards the side. So I'm going to go ahead and select those edges and these edges. Rotate around. Again, the corner edge, please. Thank you. Not you. There we go. Shift X. Let's go into form view so that we've got a better idea of what edges I just separated there. Alright. Let's go back to 5 view. Select my faces, Ctrl U. Okay, we're getting somewhere. Now let's also go ahead and separate some edges down here. Gonna cut those and these. Shift X. Oh, I don't think I cut them. Shift X. Try it one more time. Ctrl U. A little bit better. Let's also cut these two along the sides. Shift X, face, Ctrl U. Oh, I've separated these faces completely. I see. So let's go ahead and just attach them down here at the bottom to this part then. Shift S, face, select Ctrl U, see what that gets me. That's a lot nicer. I think I quite like that UV. It's good, it's symmetric. Alright, so that's our UV for our front piece. Ctrl 1. Let's bring all of the latch pieces back up. There they are. And we want to arrange these pieces into our greater top UVs. So we're going to go ahead and start by moving them off to the side. Oop. Select them all, drag them over here. Make sure that the screw pieces are still together. Hold V and snap them on top of each other. There we go. And let's scale them down and put them down here as well. And we're going to put the screw UVs on top of our pip UVs. Because they're all circles. Alright. So that should be all of the UVs for the top piece of our chest. Oh, we're not showing the dark right now for some reason. There we go. Alright, so now we've fixed our UVs. And let's take a quick look at our object. And everything looks fine. Let's also go ahead and test our redwood. So we're going to go to our wood red. We're going to change this color to a file. And we're going to go grab our redwood. And there we go. So the redwood looks fine up top, and the pattern wood looks fine on the sides. Moving down our hierarchy, now let's do our base. So we've got very similar gobbledygook as we had with our lid. So let's go ahead and position our camera nicely and create a camera-based UV setup. Now, same thing the way we started our lid. We're going to cut out the front faces. So we're just going to go ahead and select all of these edge loops. Adjust our camera so that we can work a little bit better in here. Oh, I'm missing an edge loop. Yes, alright, let's fix that real quick. Woo! Accidentally turned off my shaded view. Make sure we've got the right edges selected. This way. Oop, missed the one in the corner. There we go. All the way down to the other side. And then back up. Selected the wrong edge on accident. Let's fix that. Good. And then the top edge. All the way across. Come into our UVs, Shift X. And we should have separated out this front piece. Hooray. Drag that over here. Ctrl U. Rotate it nice and straight. Good. Let's continue on with the rest of the box. Ctrl 1. Let's do our lip. So we need to select all of the edges that go around the outside of our box. A couple of double clicks should select most of them. I think that's all of them. Shift X. Pull off the top and the inside. Good. Now let's separate the actual lip from the little pieces up top. So I want to select the edges that go around this piece. Double click that edge and hopefully that wraps around the whole side. So far so good. You can see it there. Nice and orange all the way around. And now we also need to select this edge, double click that one, come back in here, Shift X, go to face select, double click the rim, pull it off, Ctrl U, and there's that same rim like we had on our lid. Now we just need to fix this piece up here, the top of our lip. Now I can choose to have the top of the lip be a part of the inside of the box or a part of the lip of the box. I think I'm more tempted to make it part of the lip, to be perfectly honest. In which case... oh, but I like this face lining up. Alright, we'll keep it as part of the inside then. So we're going to go ahead and add a cut along the diagonal of this piece. So right here, and then down to the bottom where it meets the lip. Shift X. Same thing on the other side. The diagonal, and then down to where it meets the lip. Shift X. And then we should have this unfold nicely. I want it to also unfold along the back. So we'll go here to there, Shift X, down here, here to here, Shift X. Those are all of the cuts that I want on the top piece for now. And now let's work on the inside. So if we just select the inside and Ctrl U, it doesn't look too square. Looks not bad. Let's go ahead and separate the front panel from the side panels though, because I don't like this tearing that's happening up front. So we're going to go ahead and select this corner edge, double click that, Shift X, same thing on the other side, zoom in nice and close, double click that edge, Shift X, Ctrl U, good. And then this back corner, we could also go ahead and fix that, since the side panels are probably not carved from the same piece of wood as the rest. So we'll zoom into the back, grab the back corner, see how far up this edge lip takes me, grab this edge, and then the edges line up to that corner. Good, good. Make sure we're not selecting too many edges. Shift X. Come back around over here. Same thing on the other side. Double click that edge. Double click the edge underneath the lip. And this edge right here. Shift X. Faces. Ctrl U. And we need to cut apart the top of the lip up here so that we don't get this weird pinching. Also, there's something interesting going on in here. Is that alright? That's this corner. Yeah, that's the corner, alright. Double check the other side. Whoops. Doesn't feel symmetrical. 1, 2, 3. Come back to the other side. 1, 2, 3. Huh, it is. Alright. So let's just fix the top then. And the way we're going to do that, I suppose, is by cutting this edge loop right here. So let's go ahead and recenter our camera, double click that edge, see where it goes. It goes all the way around, back up to the other side. So we can fix that on the other piece later. Let's go ahead and Shift X for now. Grab this face, Ctrl U. And that is the bottom of our box. Good. Now let's go ahead and double click the same edge again. And then deselect the ones that are on this particular shell. And Shift S to sew them back together on the bottom of our box. Good, so we've got our bottom interior, we've got our rim, we've got our side planks. Now let's do the outside of the box. Let's go ahead and separate them out. We'll lay it out the same way you would a cube. I want to emphasize that the wood wraps around the sides. I don't really care that it doesn't hook up properly to the bottom. So I'm thinking about where I want to put my seams. And I think the best place to put them would be on this back corner here. So we're going to go ahead and select those back corners. Let's get a good zoom in. Select those. Something over here. Select these. Deselect them from the other UV shells. Shift X. Double click Ctrl U. We've already got it looking decent. Let's also go ahead and we could disconnect the sides from the bottom here, because again, we don't need the bottom warping our texture. So we'll just double click those edges. Same thing on the other side. Shift X. Faces. So now we've got the bottom hooked up to the back. Interesting. I see what I've done wrong. So we actually do need to fix these UVs. One sec. We need to reattach these. Reattach these. Let's see what this looks like now. This pleases me a lot more because it emphasizes that the texture will wrap around the side of the box, but it doesn't necessarily care about the bottom. If we want to clean this up front, we could also theoretically cut this edge loop. Let's go ahead and Ctrl U that. And if we line this up properly, these should not matter all that much, and it probably won't be that noticeable up front. So let's go ahead and select these faces, rotate them around. Let's try and get them nice and straight. Let's position that down here, get it nice and centered, scale it in. Move it down to the bottom. Let's go to object mode and click off of it, see how it looks. Let's Control 1. I don't see that seam at all. And it looks good along the rest of the wood. So that's good. Alright. Let's move the other pieces back into position. And let's take into account where the pieces of the UV are on the other half of the chest. So for instance, these pieces, which are our planks up front, I want to position them roughly in the same location and at the same size as the planks on the lid. We can go ahead and put the rim inside of the other rim, and then the inside of the box over here, where we have the inside of the other box. Let's go ahead and just select the bottom to see how much space we're working with. Face select, scale this down. Let's go ahead and swap these two, actually. We'll rotate the rim 90 degrees and put it over here. Maybe scale it down a bit more. And then we'll put the inside up here. Good. So that is the base of the box. Moving on down our hierarchy, the bottom pips. Same thing we did with the top pips. We're going to go ahead and select them all. Create camera based. Select them all. Ctrl U. Modify and layout to get them all the same size. Select them and move them with the V key to get them all lined up on top of each other. And then let's select one of our top pips, just so that we know where we want to put them all. So we'll go ahead and scale these down, and again hold the V key, set them on top of the other pips. There we go. Let's make sure that doesn't interfere with the other base UVs. Doesn't look like it. Looks like we're good. So that's the bottom pips. Down our hierarchy, the handles. So let's go ahead and zoom in. Let's start with the base of the handles. So let's Ctrl 1 on one of these. We've got both halves. We could always just delete one half and then mirror this part over. So let's go ahead and do that. Goodbye to you. Oop. Faces. Goodbye to you. Let's work on this half. So we're going to go ahead and create by type camera. See how bad it is. Create camera based, Ctrl U. Honestly, not that bad, but we can probably make it a little bit better. I like all of the flat pieces being its own piece, and let's just separate out the shirt and have that as its own set of UVs. So we'll zoom in. I want to select some of these edges that go around that t-shirt shape. Up here, these edges, that loop should go all the way around, and then these, and these, and these. Shift X, and now I should have the base, Ctrl U, and the little t-shirt shape, Ctrl U. And that makes me a little happier. Ctrl 1 again. Let's go ahead and grab these and scale them down. Let's go ahead and make sure that they match up to where we want them on the overall bottom UVs. So let's grab base and pips bottom and the handle group. But let's not grab the whole handle group, let's just grab the handle base. There we go. And we're going to go ahead and shrink these down. And we want them sort of around there. How's that look? That doesn't look too terrible. Let's look at our top. See if it fits in with where we have the other golden objects. Looks fine to me. Alright. Good. In that case, let's continue. Actually, let's double check one more time against the base. I don't like how close that is. I'm going to move them just a bit off of the base. Alright. Let's continue on. So that's the base of our handle. Let's do the handle proper. Let's create an automatic UV. Create a camera-based UV. Fine. Let's go to edge. Not on you. On you, please. And let's select the edge that goes along the back of the handle, because we don't mind hiding our seams where they're not visible. Shift X, faces, unfold, one long tube. Ctrl 1. Let's put them where the UVs need to be. Scale it down. We'll put these down here. Good. And then we've got all of these screws. So we're going to go ahead and select all of our screws. All of the UVs are in the same place. There we go. That should be all of the screw UVs. And we're just going to scale them down. Grab a pip real quick. And move them on top. Hold V so that we can snap to vertex. It's a bit finicky for some reason. There we go. And scale them down. Good. So that's the whole handle group. Let's move on to the bottom of the latch, which should just be a couple of screws and the middle piece. So let's do that one first. Ctrl 1, see what we're dealing with. Alright, all of the screws, same thing as last time. Select all of those UVs. Bop, 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 bop. Face select all of them, grab a pip. Scale them all down. Hold the V key. Get them into position. Scale them nice. And then let's do the middle piece, which currently looks like this. Let's create a camera-based UV. And we're just going to cut out the middle nose portion so that it flips up. So we're going to go ahead and up. Is up the best way of doing it? I guess it would be better to separate the top. Sure. So we'll grab these. And that one. Shift X. Ctrl U. Ctrl U. And I don't mind having this in two pieces. If we really wanted to keep them connected, we would just probably connect these four up front. Ctrl U. There we go. Now let's Ctrl 1. And let's put these where they need to be. So let's select our bottom UVs. Scale these down. Let's see one more time where our top UVs are. This is the bottom piece. Alright, so given that, let's put you over here. Let's grab our lid again real quick. We've got some room in the lid. I'm going to go ahead and move this piece of the lid down a bit. And then let's look at our base again. Sure. Grab those latch pieces, if you please. That looks fine. Grab our lid again. Okay. I just want to make sure that all of the gold portions aren't overlapping with any of the wood portions, and I will explain why later. So let's grab this, which is our little U shape, our little M&M handle. Oh. We didn't delete the old one, I see. Object mode. Goodbye. No, not object mode. Face mode. Because this was a mirrored object. Yes. Okay. Goodbye to those. Let's go back to object mode. Reselect our lid and base portions. So far so good. Looks like. I'm going to move my tube UVs down just a smidge so that they don't intersect with our pips and screws. There we go. And now we've done the front latch and the sidebars. So now let's do the hinges. Rotate around to the back. Grab all of the screw UVs and put them in the appropriate position. So all of the screws. All of the screws. Faces. Select them all. Grab a pip. Scale them down. Move them into position. Scale them down. And now for the NURBS curves. Oh, you know, I just remembered I forgot to remirror the side handles. One sec. I'm so sorry. We'll go ahead and mesh mirror. Let's make sure that we are mirroring in the negative X direction. Looks good. Same thing with our little McDonald's handle. Mesh mirror. Good. Alright. Put those in smooth preview, please. Good, 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 good. Oh, same thing with the front ring and the latch pieces. Alright, let's come back to the back. And let's continue fixing our UVs. So the NURBS curves of our hinges. Ctrl 1. Create camera based. We'll just go ahead and cut along the back curve. Shift X. Face select. Unfold. Ctrl U. Looks good to me. Delete the other half of our hinge. Delete the other half of our hinge. Object mode. Mesh mirror it back into the other position. Good, good, good. Then we need to go ahead and move our UVs. Let's go ahead and reselect the rest of our UVs. Oop, didn't hold shift. U and U, please. Thank you. And then on the outliner, from our base all the way down. Good. Let's grab our lid. See where we've got room. Not a whole lot of room left for these little metallic pieces. Alright, but this is fairly thin, so we can probably make them nice and small. So we'll just go ahead and come back to object mode. Select just these two faces, all of these. Let's go ahead and grab our base, please. Thank you. Oh, I deselected them again. Yay. Select those both. Thank you. Let's go ahead and shrink these down. Put them down here. How's that look? Where's our lid? Looks fine to me. Alright. Ctrl 1. Let's do the planks. Whoop. Object mode. Ctrl 1. Again, we only need to do half of it, and we'll mirror them over. Create automatic camera based. There we go. Let's select the bottom part. Ctrl U, unfold. The triangulation of the selected mesh has non-manifold geometry. Ah, wonderful. Abort. Let's figure out where that non-manifold geometry is, shall we? Let's go to Smooth Preview. We are already in Smooth Preview. Let's see if we can find anything that is in particular broken. Let's see if we have a hole in here. Aha! This doesn't make any sense. That we can see yellow through the back of this. What is this? No, that's just the inside of those faces, so that's fine. Interesting. Let's go to vertex face. Haven't touched vertex face much yet, but vertex face lets you look for zero-dimensional edges, which is what I'm currently looking for. If we see any straight lines that don't look like faces, that means we've got a zero-dimensional edge in here which needs fixing, but I'm not seeing any, which concerns me. Aha! This is silly. We've got edge loops that don't line up here. We've got n-gons. Oh dear. Alright. Let's go back to face select and fix up some n-gons. Because I don't remember having these. Yeah, no, we definitely do have n-gons. Alright. So let's go ahead and very quickly turn off our textures, please. Thank you. Grab our multi-cut tool and fix up this mesh. Let's go back into our one view and add in some edge loops. Do these faces even connect? They do. Okay, well that's nice at least. So far so good there. What's going on here? I don't like how that edge loop is curving. Yeah, okay, so that's interesting. Let's go ahead and delete those faces. And there is our non-manifold geometry. Where does this face come from? Nowhere. Control delete. Alright, hopefully we don't have any more of those lying around. Let's keep fixing this. Let's bridge those back together. Alright, let's bridge this gap back together. Let's grab our multi-cut tool again and finish adding in the connecting edge loops. We've still got this pinching going on in here, so I'm not pleased by that. Let's delete those. Select this edge, deselect the two on the ends and bridge them. And that is fixed. Alright, I don't see any more n-gons there. Bottom looks fine. Let's double check the top. No n-gons here. Alright, let's go ahead, go back to object mode. And let's try adding a cut down the middle of the back. Shift X. Double click, face, Ctrl U, unfold. Still have non-manifold geometry, huh? Let's try and fix it. Hello everyone, I'm back, and we've successfully fixed the non-manifold geometry. The issue was, we successfully fixed our hinge, but we forgot to delete the other one. If we delete the other hinge, then we can go ahead and double click our hinge and Ctrl U, and it works just fine, and there's no non-manifold geometry. So it really was just that one little triangle. I just forgot to delete the bad copy. So since we had to delete that copy, let's go ahead and select our main hinge and mirror out a new one. There we go. Control 1. We've got them both there. Let's go ahead and select all of these faces and move them into position. Scale these down, and we'll put them in this little pocket down here. Good. Let's also go ahead and make sure where these are. Let's just go ahead and put these inside of those rings. There we go. Now let's do the top part of our hinges. Hopefully these will be a little bit better. Let's double click this one. Control 1. There's no silly interior bits here, so there shouldn't be any problems. Control U. Looks okay. If we wanted to give a little bit more space to the main object, we could always separate out the little cylinder bit the same way we did with the latch up front. Do we want to add in that flap? No, honestly, this is fine. Alright, we're going to go ahead and delete the bad one. Object mode. Face select this one, delete it, object mode, the good one, mesh, mirror. Hooray. Faces, select all of those, select all of our pieces, and let's adjust our UVs. Can I please select everything? Thank you. Face select, there we go. I only care about these UVs. Scale them down, and we'll put them over here on the side. Let's move these over to give them some room. These are both of the noodles. There we go. Oop, forgot the other one. There we go. So now let's go ahead and go to object mode one more time. Let's select the chest, see if we've got everything laid out okay. We've got some of the golden pieces on our lid, clipping into where we don't want them on our base. So let's go ahead and select the lid pieces, the top pieces, and our bottom base. And we're just going to move these faces over so that they don't clip into the bottom of the box. That looks good. Let's select the whole chest one more time. Nothing is going into the bottom of the box. That's good. All of the gold has its own little area. That's great. The little red panels are over here on the right. Good, good, good. So let's rotate back around, look at the whole mesh, reactivate our textures, and let's go ahead and open up our render view. Oop, that's not our render view. Final render view, please. And hit play. Looks good. Now, one last thing we're going to be doing with our chest materials is combining them all into a single material. So, if we go ahead and click our chest base, you'll notice that we have our wood red and our wood basic materials, and that all of our metallic pieces have this blin 1. Sometimes it's useful to have our materials separated out like this, but for a simple model like this one, it's useful to have them all combined into a single texture. So what we're going to do is start by Ctrl Alt S, incrementing and saving, and then we're going to select all of the pieces of our chest and edit delete by type history. Now that we've done that, we're going to pop open our UV editor, and we're going to make sure that we have all of our mesh selected. There we go. And we're going to click this happy little camera button, which is our UV snapshot button. Now by default, the image format it'll attempt to save your UVs to is a Maya if, so make sure that you've swapped that over to PNG, and make sure that your image size is square. 2048 is fine, 1080 is also perfectly reasonable, 512 is the lower bound, don't go any lower than that. Once you've set that up properly, hit apply, and it'll output your UV file to your Maya project. So if we pull over our Maya project and go into our images folder, we now have this out UV. Wonderful, so now that we have this image, it's time to open up Photopea. So this is Photopea, which is our online free version of Photoshop, and we're going to make a square image, but we want to make sure that the size is the same as our UV snapshot, so 2048 by 2048. Hit create. Actually, let's change our background to black. Hit create. There we go. And this is where we're going to be building up our material. Now let's come back to our Maya images and drag in our out UV. Click into Photopea and hit enter. And now we've got our UV snapshot over a nice black background. Then we're going to come back to our Maya project directory, and we're going to go into our source images folder, where we have our wood dark and our wood red material. So we're going to start by dragging in the dark material, and go ahead and let that load. Click into Photopea, hit enter, then come back to Maya, or our Maya project directory, drag in our redwood. One more time, click into Photopea, hit enter, and now our images are here as layers. Let's go ahead and move our out UV by clicking it and dragging it above the wood so that we can see it overlaid on top of our texture. Now remember, if we come back to Maya real quickly, that these UVs in the top right corner are the panels where we have our red wood. So what we're going to do inside of Photopea is we're going to delete or mask all of the red wood that exists outside of these UVs. So let's go ahead and draw a rectangle around that. There we go. Let's see if we can get any tighter. There we go. And we're going to go ahead and come down to our wood red material, make sure we're on that, and click this Add Raster Mask button. And now we have the redwood only in the top right. Now that we've done that, we also need to add in a section for our gold texture. So in between my red and dark wood, I'm going to add a new layer. I'm going to go ahead and draw a selection. Whoop. Let's go ahead and zoom out a bit. And we want to make sure that we are coloring in that rectangle where we have those golden pieces of mesh. So this is where we're going to have our yellow texture. Maybe I drew it a bit too low. Let's go ahead and deselect some of this. See how that compares to our actual UVs. Probably needs to be a bit lower. So we're going to go ahead and whoop. There we go. Add in an extra selection. Oh, wrong selection tool. Let's do it from the other side since that'll be easier. There we go. And we're going to go ahead and fill this region nice and yellow. So grab our paint bucket tool and we'll change our color selection to a nice golden yellow and dump that in. And now we have a single material. Let's turn off our out UV image with our golden texture, our red wood, and our darker hazelnutty wood. So now we're going to go to File, Export as PNG. Go ahead and name our image Chest Color. Hit Save. And that'll be saved into our Downloads folder. So we're going to go ahead and open up our Downloads folder and our Source Images folder. And we're going to go ahead and move our color image in here. So here's our combined color texture. Drag that off to the side. Pop back into Maya. And we're going to make another material. Now this time around, I'm going to go to Object Mode. And I'm going to click this little blue dot up here. This little blue circle next to our render settings, which is called the Hypershader. So if I click that button, I am presented with this window, which shows me all of the materials we've made so far. We've got our basic, our red, and our blinn. So if we go ahead and right-click in this area, we get a bunch of little drop-downs. Same thing down here, hold right, and we get a context menu. So down here in the bottom left, this is where we create our materials. So we're going to go for an AI standard surface. And now we get this little network. So this AI standard surface, if you look over here on the right, this is very similar to our attribute editor where we can play around with our materials, but this is also where we can add in image files and plug them in particular ways to our material based on a node network. So as an example, we're going to drag our chest color in to our node network. And now we have our color node, and you can see it over here. We can go ahead and select them and move them around inside of this window. We can go ahead and click in the empty space to drag a selection, Alt and middle click to pan and mouse wheel to scroll. And what we're going to do is we're going to hook up this out color to this base color. And now you see that this little sphere over here in the top right has become textured with our material. And let's go ahead and minimize this window. Click on our chest, which will select everything inside that hierarchy. Hold right click, assign existing material, AI standard surface, which is the material we just made. And here is our singular material on the chest with all of the properties of our original materials. I'm also going to go ahead and rename our material to chest_M for material. Now, you'll notice that our pips are slightly darker than they were previously, and if we pop open our Arnold render view and hit play, they're not as reflective as they used to be. So what we're going to be doing to fix those is adding a roughness and a metallic map. So I'm going to very quickly pause our render, and I'm going to go back to Photopea. Now, in terms of metallic, the only part of the image that should be metallic is this little yellow zone where we have our gold material. So everything that is not in there, we're going to go ahead and grab our magic wand tool, select our little golden image portion, and we're going to go ahead and flood that with white. Whoop, wrong tool, grab our paint bucket. So now inside of that golden region, we have white, which is 100% metallic. Outside of this region, so everything but that, Ctrl A, magic tool, subtract this region. Good. Let's zoom in because we accidentally deselected too much. Grab our rectangle tool, union, we want to select all of our wooden portion. There we go. And now outside of that golden zone, we want to make this nice and black. So I'll grab my fill tool again, swap my main color to black, and we'll paint this spot black. Oop, this little bit here as well too. Good. And now we have a black and white metallic mask. So what this is going to tell Maya is that everything in the black zone is not a metal, and everything in the white zone is 100% metallic. So we're going to go to File and Export as PNG, and this time we're going to go with chest_metal. Go ahead and save that. Move that from our downloads into our source images folder. Whoop. There it is. Come back to Maya. Open up our Hypershader again. Come back to our source images folder. Drag in our metallic. Come into our source images folder, pull in our metallic, and we're going to come over here and look for our metalness. Here it is. And we're going to hook that up, not to our out color, but to one of the RG or Bs. And now if we look at our material, all of our wood is still a bit shiny, but that gold section is quite a bit more reflective. Let's go ahead and pop open our Arnold render view and hit play. And it's a little bit better. We can do a little bit more though. Let's go ahead and add some roughness. So let's come back to Photopea. And in order to build our roughness map, I'm going to go ahead and start by inverting our metallic map because we want our wood to be rough and our metal to be not. So we're going to go to Image, Adjustments, and we're going to look for Invert. And now we have nice and rough on the outside and not rough on the metallic portion. But if we wanted to take this a step further, we can also go ahead and drag in our wood roughness texture. So let's go ahead and do that. Here's my roughness map. Hit enter. Go back down to my mask layer. Use my magic wand tool to select the white area. Come back to my roughness and add a mask. So now I have some roughness on my wood and a nice smooth surface on my metal. File, export as PNG. One more time, chest_rough. Save that to my downloads folder. Move that into my source images folder. Up. Go back to Maya. Drag in my roughness. So we'll move our metal out of the way. Drag our roughness in. Drag these over here. Pop open my out color and plug this into my roughness. And now if we look at our happy little sphere, we can see that the wood is slightly differently reflective. Let's pop open our Arnold render one more time. There it is. We'll tell it to stop, tell it to hit play. Let's full screen it and zoom in. And we can see that our wood is a little bit rougher and that our gold is quite a bit more reflective. If we wanted to make that a little bit more apparent, you would put this in a proper rendering setup like we did with our chair last week. Thank you for watching until the end. That concludes this module, as well as our little run through of UVs, materials, and textures. Again, you're not required to texture or UV your models for this week's homework or the first project. This is just to introduce you to the concepts ahead of time before we get into Unreal Engine here in a few weeks. One more time, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next module.